So we're now in the non-hockey segment where I ask you some non-hockey questions just to get to know you a little bit more off the ice, along with some of your teammates as well. So first question is, what music do you like to listen to?
I would say I like to listen to a lot of rap and rock, also a lot more EDM since I joined the team because that's kind of our like pump up music before the game.
Nice. Do you guys have a warm-up mix like on SoundCloud or something like that?
We do. We actually, it's funny, our one of our coaches actually purchased like, one of the frat speakers, like the big one that lights up. So we have
Yeah,
one
yeah,
of
yeah.
those, and it's probably one of the biggest responsibilities is the girl who like brings the speaker to and from our games and is on aux. Like it's very highly held because we always have to have the music going.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Who's the best aux player on the team?
I would say definitely MK. She's our wellness director, and obviously a big part of wellness is keeping the vibes rolling. So that's what she does with her music for sure.
Now, what would the perfect day look like for you?
I would say definitely anything that involves going to a Rangers game, I feel like is good. I'm a big outdoors person, so warm weather is also appreciated. I usually go to the beach a lot over the summer, so
Yeah. I think for me, probably going to a hockey game, like you said, and then the summer probably going to a Red Sox game. So those are like my. I think it's always fun going to a sports game. So I know it's probably a basic answer, but that's probably what I would say.
yeah, absolutely.
Now, what is your guilty pleasure TV show?
Oh, guilty pleasure TV show. That's a good one. I feel like I find myself throwing on like a lot of like The Office, just as kind of like background music. It's like I think people would call it like a comfort TV show. It's definitely like a comfort TV show for me. I think over winter break I actually watched Shoresy. Not sure if you've heard of it.
I have not.
It's like a very, if you're into hockey, I think you'd really like it. It's like a very kind of niche sense of humor, but it's like hockey oriented and it was pretty funny, so I would recommend that.
Yeah, I think my guilty pleasure probably like I watched The Bachelor one time and that was pretty entertaining, not gonna lie. So it'd probably be that.
That's funny. Yeah, my roommate's like very into Love Island, so every so often I'll sort of like pop in and out and kind of see what's new with that, but not a huge reality TV person, so
Yeah, I'm not either, but like there's times where it is entertaining. Like if there's nothing on TV, like you just pop it on and like it does a good job wasting time.
absolutely, yeah.
Now, if you could have lunch with anyone in the world, who would it be and why?
I hate to have a repeat answer, but definitely would be Henrik Lundqvist
Yeah,
just because like I've been a fan of his for so long and I just would like love to have a sit down conversation, especially like he has a new podcast out,
I've
which is
seen it. It's
really
really
cool.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've been listening to it a lot, so definitely would love to just like hear about a lot of his like business ventures and the podcast and like philanthropy because obviously he has his foundation, which is like really huge. So would love to learn more.
yeah. Listened to the episode with Eli Manning, and I thought that was pretty interesting. Hearing two different athletes from different sports who have probably made it in the highest level talk about it. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's your most embarrassing hockey moment?
Well, there's been a lot of them, so definitely an easy question to answer. I would say probably my most embarrassing hockey moment was actually at my first practice at Villanova. I did cry because I was so nervous about being there and like pretty much playing hockey for the first time, but haven't been a lot of tears since then, so
That's good.
it's
That's
all
good.
good.
Yeah, no, don't worry. Every hockey player probably has some sort of tears when they first start off. Usually it's when you're much younger, but I understand where you're coming from.
Absolutely.
Luckily, I'm assuming your teammates sort of made it much better after that.
I would say so. Yeah, like I said, it's only really been happy tears since then, like,
That's
you know.
good.
So,
Well, speaking of your teammates, who's the funniest teammate you have at Villanova?
oh, funniest teammate. I would say it's definitely a tie between two. Freshman Karina Baylor, she is hilarious. She's like very like on the ice, like she'll dance around a lot. She'll like make funny faces, and it's always like very encouraging to see, especially in some of the more like heated moments. It's nice to have like a sense of comedic relief. And then junior Nadia Di Natale, she's also like very funny, big source of energy for us on the team. So yeah, definitely those two.
Now, I think, Sarah, that you might have the best style on the team, but besides yourself, who would you say has the best style?
I would say definitely has to be Liv Gordon, my fellow senior who I mentioned before. She has come rocking some really incredible outfits. She has like a very strong hat game, always has like a cool trucker hat going on. She's like a big fan of like monochromatic outfits, so she'll have like khakis and like a sweatshirt and like just the whole vibe always looks really cool and like no one quite rocks it like she does. So I'd say her for sure.
And then last non-hockey question is, what's the most interesting thing you've read or seen this week? I don't want to say mine because it's pretty obvious it's what happened to the bees last night, but I'll ask what you thought was the most interesting thing.
I mean, honestly, it is hard to top that. I would say just the playoffs in general have been really cool to follow. I mean, as a Rangers fan, it seemed like we had a really strong start, then it got a little rocky, and then we kind of reeled it back in. And I think that's just kind of like the beauty of like the NHL postseason in general is that you never know what to expect. I think obviously I'm biased, but I think of all of like the major sports, like I really think that it's like the coolest like postseason to see because it really can go so many ways.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you on that. And yeah, it's gonna be a fun game tonight between the Rangers. I love Jack Hughes. He's one of my favorite players in the league. So, but I also like Panarin as well. So I think it's gonna be a good battle. It's in New Jersey, I assume, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that should be a lot of fun. So, getting back to some hockey questions now. First one is, what advice would you give a younger player listening to this podcast on, I guess, what it takes to make it to college hockey? I think it's really cool to hear from your background, knowing that if you really want to play hockey, there's outlets for you to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you kind of took the words right out of my mouth is that I think there's a space in hockey for everyone, especially I think too now that the ACHA is this like very well developed like organization where there's multiple levels. And it's cool because in our DBCHC All-Star game, we actually had like a segment what called like the new stars. So there are a lot of girls like on the teams who are relatively new to hockey and like haven't had, a background like that. So I think that there's really a big push in the ACHA and kind of in youth hockey in general, just to get more kids involved and sort of expand into certain, geographic areas or regions where hockey's not as popular. So I would definitely say like it sounds cliche, but just don't give up because like again, I never thought I would play hockey and I think, the same can be said for a lot of other people, but if there's a will, there's a way. So definitely we'll find a space to succeed and kind of pursue that passion.
And from your perspective, what should be done to help grow women's hockey?
I mean, I think definitely like the biggest thing is really just like viewership and kind of dedication of leadership. I think that women's sports in general, as we kind of saw with like, or have continually seen with like the women's NBA, is that it's getting a lot more viewership and a lot of people are now realizing like sort of how big of a deal it is and how women's sports deserve like equity and kind of like an equal voice in the room as men's sports do. So I think definitely just having a change in perspective and kind of giving it a chance. I feel like honestly one of the biggest things with women's sports is that people like don't really know a lot about it and then they'll see a game and they'll actually be like wait this is super cool so I think really just ripping the band-aid off and like watching a woman's sporting event whether it's hockey or something else and just kind of getting that experience and seeing how cool it is like I know when people come to our games maybe for the first time they don't know what to expect but then they see like that it's really fun it's really cool they come again they bring a friend and just like that you kind of little by little sort of build up this viewership and community so think definitely, yeah, just taking a chance on it.
Yeah, I feel like the women's Final Four this year was more talked about than the men's one, at least from my perspective.
Yeah, I think I mean, like I said, it's super competitive and like a lot of these girls who are like playing, they have these really extensive backgrounds and really extensive trainings. I mean, obviously like we don't have an NCAA D1 program here for either side, men or women, but even the girls, on our team that we play with, like a lot of them have grown up in these hockey spaces where a lot of girls like have gone on to play in these really prestigious and awesome programs. So I think just like again like that viewership and kind of feeding into the hype of it all like it definitely will bring the sport like a long way.
Well, do you have any shout outs you want to give to any of your teammates, family members, friends? Feel free to do that.
Oh, absolutely. Definitely first shout out to my coaches because obviously without them I wouldn't be here. So we have Coach Matt, who's kind of our head coach, Coach Mike, who's our assistant and defense coach, and Coach Brennan, who's our goalie coach. Coach Matt, especially, like I started at the same time that he did with the team, and it's really been amazing to grow up together. Coach Mike has really also just been like an incredible presence. And, I don't know a whole lot about defense, but I know that they trust him with their life. So it's really cool to see that. And Coach Brendan, I actually had, a really interesting experience with because, as I mentioned, our junior year nationals run was like not the most orthodox of experiences because we actually didn't have a goalie who was able to go. So I had to play goalie, or I guess I volunteered myself to play goalie for our 3 games at nationals. And Brendan was really just a great support for teaching me how to play goalie really for the first time. So definitely the 3 of them. Like I mentioned before, the seniors, Grace, Molly, and Liv, who, I mean, again, have really just been so integral in my college experience, and they're friends that I, hope to have for the rest of my life. Huge shout out to MK and Austin, who are our incoming president and vice president. I got the chance to work both of them on our executive board this year, and I know that the program is in amazing hands, and they're both incredible athletes, but also really incredible leaders. So I'm really excited to see, where they take the team. Our league commissioner, how you said about growing women's hockey, I think no one is a better example of that than she is. She's the commissioner of or Taylor, she's the commissioner of women's D2 and also of the DBCHC, and the work that she's done to really establish our league and kind of build the conference has been awesome. And then obviously, wouldn't be an interview without thanking the family, especially my parents who, have always been super supportive. I remember when I called them for the first time to tell them that I signed up for club hockey, they basically dropped the phone and were like, what are you talking about? But then, they knew that it was something I always wanted to do, and they've been super supportive of it. So
I have to ask, what was it like playing goalie for the first time? Because I played goalie when I was younger, and I loved it. I'm assuming you did as well. But it must be weird, like facing those shots for the first time. It's a bit scary, knowing that you have to like go in front of them. You're not like avoiding it.
right. Scary is definitely the word for it. And, of course, like as fate would have it, the first game that we played with nationals, mind you, I had one practice before with like the pads and everything. So the first game that we were playing, it was against like the number 1 team in the ACHA, like at the time. They've actually moved on to D1, like ACHA D1 now. So it was definitely a nerve-wracking experience. But again, like we just knew that we had to do whatever it takes. And like for me, it's always been about like contributing to the team in whatever ways I can. And like we knew we had to go to nationals, and like we couldn't do that without a goalie. So I was like, might as well take a chance
Yeah.
and do it. And I'm glad
Honestly,
I did.
honestly, the hardest part about being a goalie is just handling the puck behind the net and doing that stuff and communicating with the defenseman. I find like once you learn how to like the techniques and positional stops to make saves, because a lot of it is really just being in the right position to make a save, since sometimes you can't see the puck. I find the communication with the defenseman or defenders behind the net or stick handling is like the toughest part.
Definitely. It was a huge learning process, and I was very lucky that, our starting goalie came back because she was abroad that semester, hence why she couldn't go. I was very happy when she was back and made all the incredible, amazing saves that she always does, and I personally did not have to worry about it anymore, but it was a great experience for sure.
Well, who should we interview next from your team? I know you
From
mentioned a
my
lot of
team.
people, so
Oh my gosh, I mean, can you like fit the whole team in a segment? I would say definitely Grace Curran. She is really awesome. She had a groundbreaking season, like I mentioned before. She surpassed that 100-point threshold, and she's really just been a great mentor for a lot of the girls on the team. And she's gone on to do like really cool things post graduation also. But I think hockey's been a really big part of her life, and she can definitely touch on a bit of that sort of youth hockey that I kind of can't
yeah.
contribute to as much, but she's a great player and an awesome friend.
Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate your time. I wish you nothing but the best for your future endeavors and with your new job at FanDuel. I know you're going to do great at that. And best of luck to your team moving forward. Obviously, you guys made a lot of strides in the last 4 years, and I know you guys are going to continue to do that. So, but thank you so much for your time. It was a lot of fun getting the chance to meet and talk with you today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on here. Really appreciate it.